Friends, how we doing? Welcome back as always to Continues to Tick. My name is Jesse. I've seen a couple new subscribers join the journey, and this is going to be a long ride. I started this in the year 2020 at the age of 24. I'm 28, going to be 29 this year. I don't plan to retire until my 50s. That is the way I'm planning to live my life. If somehow I can bypass a couple years and live ahead, ideally that is the goal, but I sit back. This is my pace of living. The reality is, I believe that wealth is created slowly over time. And you may be a dividend investor like me. Maybe we're on the same wavelength here. Enjoy the journey. It's slow. It's a slow growing process. If you like gardening, same thing. If you like maybe making your own wine, same thing. Just kind of take a step back. This is the headspace of a dividend investor. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's not anything like that. I don't really gain anything by making these videos other than just trying to show you how a dividend investor tends to think about building their portfolio. It's like a case study. I'm showing you over time, over the years, what may or may not happen and explaining my learning experience. But you guys saw the title, friends. Last week was a milestone. This week, it's going to be a typical dividend portfolio review. Not the big monthly that we typically do at least once a month, but just a video in between, just to kind of touch base. I'm here every 2 weeks. Today, I'm going to show you my portfolio, where we're at now, a couple weeks into the new year of 2024, which is crazy to imagine that now we're a couple weeks in already into the year. And my question to you is, are you already falling behind, or are you where you want to be? It's a new year. Some people start New Year's resolutions. Really, it's just on a loop for some people. For me, it's on a path of continual improvement, continual movement forward, one step at a time. The last thing I want to do is stay stationary for too long. But we will fall, friends. It's going to happen. The key is to not stay there. So if you're still stuck a couple weeks into the new year, just know today is a perfect day to take that next step, and then maybe a couple weeks you take the next one. You go at your own pace, but don't get stuck here. It's really easy to say we're going to do something and not do it. That's why if you're a dividend investor, there's a couple keys, right, to kind of keep moving forward. Automatically investing, deciding on a route, making decisions. These are all things that I'm going to talk about, friends, as to how I believe people invest for decades. Like I said, we're on a loop, and that's going to be the topic for today's video. But before we go there, I'm going to show you guys my portfolio. Here we are this week, friends, in the Jesse's Cash Flow portfolio. $75,338.82, and we're still hovering above the 75K mark, which is neat. That was the milestone we hit recently. A couple of you joined the journey at that point, and those always tend to be my more popular videos, these milestone videos, and they've always been since the beginning. I remember hitting my $10,000 mark, my $20,000, my $30,000, and so on and so forth, every 10,000 or so. But people like milestones. I like milestones. But what do we do in between these milestones? Because, our investing doesn't just stop. Our portfolio doesn't just stop. This is where a lot of the discipline has to lie. What happens? How do we live? What decisions we make? That is the secret. How we go in between these milestones is the secret to investing for decades. And later in this video, after we get done with this portfolio review, I'm just going to give you a handful of just thoughts, 5 of them, as to how I think people have to think to invest for decades on end. And if you're a dividend investor, you're going to have to invest for decades. You have to. It is how wealth is generated as a dividend investor over time. So friends, if you're thinking this pace is slow, this is how I think a dividend investor has to view things. You take it slow. It's compound effect. Everything is kind of growing upon itself slowly. And eventually, when you get a couple years ahead, you leverage time. Time continues to tick, right? It passes. You're going to look back and see a significant size of a portfolio, a significant stream of passive income. And one day, people are going to look at you and say, man, where did all this come from? And you're going to look back and say, it came from years, friend. It came from years of investing, doing the same thing repeatedly over time, watching it grow, being patient, making the right decisions, making decisions consistently. That is where all this work is happening. That is what I'm currently doing. So for some people, it's not the pace they want to move. It's not a get rich quick scheme. There's nothing really fancy about this. There's nothing sexy about this investing strategy. But if you've been here for the journey, friends, you have seen it work over time. Maybe some of you have been here from the very start, my very early videos. And here we are, friends, just chipping away. And that's the whole message to this channel. And I got time. That's why I take it slow. Maybe some of you play my videos as you guys fall asleep. Maybe some of you guys play me in the background. Maybe some of you guys just come for the cash flow portfolio reviews. Whatever the case is, friends, I'm glad you're here. And I'm glad we got something going here. I make these videos for fun at the end of the day, but I document my journey so one day I can look back and point, say, this is how I did it. Look at my videos. And with my little intro, my long intro out the way, as I said, we're still above the 75K mark. This is with an all-time return of 17.11% and an all-time gain of $13,000. This is with dividends and market return, both included. And as we scroll down here, M1 is still trying to do their calculations down here. I'm still not a huge fan of it, to be honest, because it shows it to you here in this little corner. And some of them are kind of there and some of them aren't. So for the past week, we've had a return of 0.52%. The market overall has been pretty stagnant. Over the past month, for example, see, it doesn't show anything. And then we could take a look at the last 3 months. So the last 3 months have been pretty good. And honestly, that's where a lot of my gains have come from. Just over these last 3 months, these last 90 days. As you can see, with the return of 10%, $595 from dividends, $6,000 from market gain alone. I'm still curious, friends, year to date, I know the year just started, but it says 0.10% gain, 60 in dividends, and minus 352. So for the year, it's been pretty flat. You can even say on the slow side in terms of growth. But the year just started. But continue to chip away, friends. Continue to do the right things, and right things will happen. And as we move forward, friends, there's always a link down in my description box down below. If you click on that, you can always access my portfolio. You can take a look for yourself on your own time, at your own pace, to see what it is that I hold, right? As I go back to my all-time here, click on that. You can see everything that I'm holding in all my sectors. Take a look, compare, think about some of my holdings, maybe think about which ones you would do differently. There's a couple in here I would do differently, but I'm in this already, until eventually I'm planning to sell positions. There's only one position that I'm thinking about, kind of selling, kind of holding on to. There's really only one, and it's, on the forefront of my mind, but for now, I'll keep that in my portfolio. But this is the all-time, friends. And all-time tech is still my best returning sector with 185%. If we click on it, for example, you can see 185% return, $6,000 gain. And a lot of it, some of you may know already, is from Nvidia. Low dividend yield, a growing company. It's just a matter of me waiting to see what happens. I still believe in it for now. I have no complaints with it. But apart from Nvidia, looks like Oracle's the second best, IBM, Apple, Visa, and Cisco. So if you click on that link, if you're curious, you can see this type of information on all my sectors. Look at it at your own pace. And friends, I know the year just started, but I already had to make one adjustment. So I've been doing 150, or I should backtrack. I've been doing 100 for a while, right? Almost all of last year. I more recently, over the last few months, went up to $150, funneling every single week. This last week, I adjusted and pivoted again, just to be transparent with you. I'm not super happy about it, but it's something that's necessary. Sometimes I'd rather adjust and pivot than stop completely. So more recently, I'm trying to pay off my debts a lot quicker, right? I'm also more recently in the situation of changing jobs, maybe relocating for a job temporarily. So my expenses, I'm trying to, recalibrate them. I'm trying to take care a little bit more of the cash that I have on hand. So I had to make an adjustment. 150 was my prior weekly funnel. I adjusted it to $100 to take a step back. And that's my plan. Hopefully, as I stabilize a little bit more with my job situation, get more clarity, I can go back up to $150. But for now, it's $100. And you could say, where is a lot of my other money going to? Well, it's going to a lot of personal development. I'm actually also putting in $150 into personal therapy. I'm trying to really grow as a person. An EQ issue that I'm trying to work through, trying to grow through as a person, right? Trying to complete myself and continue to elevate and grow in this journey of life. And, a big chunk of my money every single week is going into personal therapy. And I've enjoyed that process. That's a whole journey on its own. If I could find a way to eventually share that journey with you, I'd love that. I'm learning so many things about myself and so many things about just people and humans in general. It's amazing. But because of that, a lot of my money is actually going there every week. 100 to the funnel, to my dividends, and another 150 to therapy. That's just how it is. That's where I'm at. And my job situation is not super clear right now. I'm in a job hunt, in summary. So I'm waiting to see where the pieces all fall. So I had to make an adjustment, my first one of the year. But I just think it's important because it's not a straight line. It's not a straight line. You can come up with a plan. And I know when I was younger, I used to get really on top of myself, really hard on myself for coming up with my plans and not fully being able to execute and getting frustrated and almost feeling like a sense of discouragement. Oh, I'm not going to make my goal. But the reality is, friends, life is a long game. Adjust and pivot rather than stop completely and fall. I could take my L, I can fall here. But the reality is, just $50 less a week gives me an extra $200 a month. It gives me a cushion for myself to have and also to feel, right, as I navigate my current issue. And there's always going to be issues in this life. If it's not a job hunt, maybe something happens with a family member, maybe something happens with one of your life partners, maybe with your kids, maybe something pops up. Something will always happen, friends, in this game of life. The idea is just to not stop, adjust and pivot. If I even get to a point where I have to invest $50 a week, I will do that. I would rather do that than stop. Keep the drop of water every single week going into this bucket because it will add up, friends. You'll thank yourself to do that rather than to stop completely. This journey's long. I've just been saying for the whole first half of this video. My adjust and pivot moments will be on full display because I think it's important for you guys to understand. It's not pretty. It's not always a straight line. But the idea, the general direction is forward progression, always. And like I said in the earlier part of the video, right, the main topic was a question. And the question is, how do people invest for decades? How do people do it? That is my question to you, just to make you think. How is it that people invest for decades? You see big name investors, Warren Buffett, the late Charlie Munger, maybe some people in your personal life, people that have continually invested for decades. How do they do it? How do people do it? How will you do it? So for me, friends, I put some thought into this. I always think about it, and that's going to be the topic for this video here. And I'm going to give you 5 general ideas and then speak on them as to why or how it is that I'm thinking about investing for decades. Because this journey, I just said, is going to be long. It's a dividend investing strategy. We got to leverage time to our advantage. Decades are going to help. Time is going to help. And because of that, we got to make it through. So let's start with this first one. The first idea that comes to mind, friends, the first question is you can't always think about it, right? I just told you I had to adjust and pivot from $150 a week to $100 for my funnel. That was a decision I had to make. That was me thinking about my portfolio. Now I can continue to overthink just in general. Oh, was that the right thing? Oh, what if it's 75 this week or 50 this week? And, you continue to think about your portfolio and overthink about it. You can't do that. If you're going to make it to investing for decades on end, you can't always think about your portfolio. It's going to lead to decision fatigue. It's all these decisions that you're thinking about, all these different scenarios that you're thinking about, when the idea is make one. That's recalibrating. See what happens, see where it lands, see how it adjusts. And if you need to, make another one. And then if you need to, make another one. but don't continually think about it. Don't go into a mental or headspace spiral about which decision you got to make and how that, ultimately will affect everything. You can't continue to think about it. It has to be on the back end of your mind. And every once in a while, come to the front end in terms of investing. Having big goals is another way to do it. Set these big goals, because big goals take a while to hit, right? Have big goals, work towards them, make decisions as you need to. Avoid decision fatigue, overthinking. Clarity is very important, creating that headspace. Kind of going hand in hand with this, right? Thinking about all the decisions you got to make, right? Thinking about all these things you have to do differently. It comes to my next point. Make a decision. One of the reasons we overthink everything is because we're not making an actual decision. So one way to invest for decades on end is rather than overthink, rather than think about all these scenarios and never making a decision, make one. Make a decision. For me, I looked at my portfolio, I looked at my funds, I looked at where I'm at currently in my job hunt, my life situation. Hey, I think it'd be a good idea right now to kind of pull back. So I pulled back $50 every single week. Gives me a little bit extra cushion for the month, makes me breathe a little better. The collar around my neck isn't so tight. I made that decision. I could have just allowed it to play out and then eventually in the future been like, all right, I'm in a tighter spot here. Or I could have made a decision and then the next week made another and then another. But those are all really not making a single actual decision. Make one. Make a decision. Don't overthink this. Make one, execute, let time pass. If you need to make another one, make one. But otherwise, you already made a decision. Make it an important one. This next thing that comes to mind is this number 3 here, is that today is the answer, right? It kind of goes hand in hand with the decision and the one even before that in terms of, don't overthink. This one, I want you guys to think about action. Think about action. Yes, it's like a decision, but with a different context. You can make a decision tomorrow, next week, 2 weeks from now. But the point is, you got to make it today. Whatever you think about, make it today. Move through this life fluidly. That's kind of the way I tend to view this. Like water, like a river, right? Continue to move. Yes, there's rocks impeding this river. Yes, there's going to be objects and barriers and issues that are going to interfere with your life, right? I don't want to go on a job hunt right now. I wish I didn't have to, but that's one of the barrier blocks right now in my life from flowing forward. Well, you just got to move around it, navigate through it, move fluidly. Not only make a decision, but now take action on that decision and make it today. Think about it and make it today. That's why this little phrase here is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? The next best time is today. And it's kind of that same type of mindset. Don't wait all this time and wish you would have made a decision a while ago, right? Years ago, yesterday. Make it today. That's how you go about investing for decades on end. You got to move through this life very fluidly. Don't get stuck somewhere. If you find yourself unable to navigate a rough patch in your life, you're going to get stuck there. And trust me, friends, it's okay to get stuck and fall. This game of life is a long river, right? If we're speaking about that same analogy, it's a long river down. But don't get stuck in a whirlpool somewhere and stagnate and rotate in circles. Continue to find that path forward. Find that channel. Continue to move. Think about your decisions, choose one, and take action on it today. Don't let time continue to pass. The same thing could be said when I was speaking about the very first, start of the year here. We're already a couple weeks in. My question to you is, have you made a move yet? Or are you continuing to make the right moves? I guess I should say. Just some questions to ask yourself. And for this next one, income can happen fast, investments can happen slowly. This is like another just general mindset to adapt, right? If you're thinking about investing for decades, don't think it's a quick game to get, wealthy. Some people get rich overnight. I mean, that is income coming in fast. But to be wealthy, it's kind of like setting your pieces right on the board, right? You got to set them methodically, boom, boom, boom. And then over time, you start to realize, man, I'm in a good position here. But that takes time. That is like your investments. That is like you investing over time. It's like placing this good piece here, that's solid, placing another good piece over here on this side of the board, good, another one over here, bam, and it takes a while. And before you know it, you're in a really solid position. But sometimes finding the right position, setting your pieces in the right areas takes time. That's why you got to look at investing as a slow process, building wealth as a slow process. But income, that can come quickly. You can change and switch jobs and get a pay bump. You can go back to school and get a new job and go into the workforce again and see a significant pay increase. You can make a product, you can sell something, right? And see a very high increase in your income just month to month, a couple months from now, overnight. Income can happen fast. And I guess that's just my general point. So don't confuse income with investments. Don't confuse income, making money, with creating wealth. There's a slight difference here. Income can happen fast. Investments, in a way, should happen slowly if you want to make them right. If you want to do it right, set your pieces in place in the right places. That part can take time. So just switch your mindset. Continue to remind yourself. That's what I'm trying to do to make it in order to invest for decades on end. And for this last one, friends, we're going to end with this one here. This is number 5, if we're going by chronological order. But it's definitely look, but don't stare. And this is ultimately what I think of as alignment. Alignment with yourself. It's okay to look at other people and how they're living their life, how they're making money, how they place their pieces on this board, right? Their investments, how they created them. It's okay to look, but don't stare in the sense that you want to copy them. You get discouraged when you see their progress compared to yours. That is what I mean by this last section here, called alignment. Align it with yourself and your own future trajectory and your plan moving forward. It's okay to find mentors and almost encouraged to, but just be careful because, as humans, we often want to compare ourselves to other people. Just be very careful with this, because as you go about making your own progress, you can see maybe it doesn't happen as quickly. You can't compare, when I heard this saying is you can't compare your chapter 2 in life to someone's chapter 13. You can't do that. When you do it though, naturally we tend to. It's easy to feel discouraged, but the idea is that is not your current alignment. You're thinking about something that isn't the case for you. Look at yourself objectively, look at where it is you want to go, and understand that you have a plan set out for yourself. And if you don't, friends, then that's a whole nother issue. But let's say you came up with a plan, and now you're comparing yourself to others, right? You're staring at them. Now you start to feel discouraged, and then it's going to make you second guess your current movement. There you are, rotating in circles, making decision after decision when you're not waiting to see how it plays out. You make a new decision too early on top of one you just made, and you find yourself going in circles. And it's tough, friends, because if you're trying to invest for decades on end, that's not the recipe. You're just going to continue to make a move after a move, get stagnated, move in circles, and before you know it, these decades are going to pass, and you're not going to have gained any traction. You're just going to be in the same spot for a while, and you're going to fall behind. So when I say definitely look, but don't stare, that is what I mean. Trust yourself on your path, on your vision. Don't get discouraged. It's okay to look at other people to see where they are going, how they got there. Add some of that to your own plan, but don't fully copy. Don't compare your chapter 2 to someone's chapter 13. Move about your life in a fluid motion, friends. Take action, make the right decisions. Start today. What's the saying? Move quickly, but don't hurry. It's the same idea. So hopefully some of these little points here were helpful, friends. These are all things that just come to mind when I'm thinking about my own journey, right? On how I think about, for me, for example, how is it that I'm going to invest for decades on end? Like, how do people do that? How am I going to do that? Those are the 5 things that come to my mind. But as always, friends, thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be here every 2 weeks until, I'm done. I have so many plans moving forward with this portfolio, but the idea is it does happen slowly, and I fully get that. Hopefully you guys stop in from time to time, maybe every other week for some of you, but I'll be here regardless because the journey continues. This is my pace of investing for my dividend strategy. It's fun. I enjoy it. Life is happening. I am learning. I am growing. And my portfolio is growing too. But with that ramble out the way, friends, I will see you in 2 weeks. It will happen soon enough. This time passes regardless. See you then.